We expected that impulse charity donors at store checkouts were just smaller versions of traditional donors. It turns out they're completely different.
What do you mean completely different?
It's not the first-time giver or someone making a large grand donation. Everything we know about those who donate, their patterns, motivations, break down in that split-second decision at the cash register.
I'm David Hermanovitch, and this is the Aha Moment presented by Binghamton University. Now, whether you're gearing up for the holiday shopping season or just getting your weekly groceries, you've likely seen those prompts on the payment screen at checkout asking if you'd like to donate to a certain charity or cause. But how does this quote-unquote impulse giving work, and is it actually effective? Today we're talking to Lauren Dula about just that. Lauren is an associate professor at the Binghamton University College of Community and Public Affairs, and Lauren has explored impulse giving at checkouts extensively, and she's joined us today to discuss the research on the topic, how common checkout giving is, how people give, who usually gives, and what groups are more likely to give. So Lauren, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Now, I just want to start off with a little bit of a potential misconception that I've always heard and it was always told to me when thinking about these, checkout charities, impulse giving, is I had always heard from people around me who were potentially just kind of cynical about the fact they're being asked to give some money. They would always tell me, it's just something that the corporation or the company uses to make back some money that they give on like a tax write-off donation to a charity, and essentially sort of passing along the donation onto the consumer so that they can get a tax write-off. That's always what I had heard. So I guess my first question is, with these checkout charities, for those who might be a little bit cynical, for lack of a better question, are they legit?
They are legit, and it's actually illegal for them to take those donations and pass them off as their own. So corporations might be doing this to help their communities. They might be doing it for good PR, but no matter what, that money has to go to the charity that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there you go. In case anyone's wondering, your money is going to the charity. So check that off of your concern list, I guess.
It is. And what's interesting is if you pay attention to your receipt, no matter where you go and you want to round up your total sale to go to charity, on your receipt, it will actively say that you donated 25 cents to said charity. If you collect all those receipts, you can actually take that off of your income taxes. The only catch is no one's collecting all their receipts. So the amount of money you're actually probably donating is less than what would be your normal income tax deduction. However, all that money does pool and has to legally go to that organization.
Well, that's always good to know, just to calm some misconceptions, because word gets around. People think that they know what they're talking about. But I want to now go into a little bit of your research. You've extensively researched the act of impulse giving, whether it be at the self checkouts or a cashier asking you whether or not you'd like to donate or purchase a thing to show in the store. So what initially sparked your research? What was the sort of the catalyst to start research on impulse donations?
Honestly, it was because I kept getting asked at the register to donate to charity.
That'll do it.
We were running a survey and looking at messages that motivated people to donate to charity. And I thought, I keep getting asked to donate to charity at the checkout. So what if we ask people how they approach, checkout charity? What we really realized was this is not just checkout charity like you're giving to any organization. It's more an impulse in that few seconds that you're actually checking out, you are impulsively deciding to do something, pro-social for the community rather than buy a candy bar.
And we've all at some point encountered this, whether it's, like I said, whether it's the cashier asking you directly, or in the grocery store rounding up to the nearest dollar, or if you're buying online, they ask if you want to give a donation. Is there almost like a pressure that influences people to, even if it's not something like a charity that they commonly give to, do they almost feel like a pressure at checkout? Because it's really a split-second decision.
It really is. When we were doing the research, my co-author Ruth Hansen from the University of Wisconsin and I, we realized that you only have a max of about 30 seconds to make this decision, due to the pressure of checking out, the people waiting behind you, all of these things. And there's actually research that says if you're being observed while being asked to donate to charity, you get a certain amount of pressure to do good, quote unquote. So there is research out there that says, yes, if you put pressure on someone to give and other people are watching to see what you're going to do, you're more likely to donate.
That's interesting because I think of, when you say impulse giving, my mind automatically goes to impulse buying.
Exactly.
And at least in my brain, those two things are... it's kind of a similar trigger, but with different motivations. With impulse buying, you see something that you want and you desire, and you are like, "Oh, I need to get that now." Whereas what it sounds like with impulse giving is it's almost sort of like not an expectation, but like you mentioned, people are watching you. You're in the middle of all this, and you have a quick decision. You could be pressured, but not directly, but just with everything going on around you, you could feel a pressure to give for any sort of reason, really.
It's true. And though we didn't ask that question, we turned to behavioral economics, really, to see what that field had to say about what we consider pro-social activities. So activities that are for someone besides ourselves. So if I do buy a candy bar, that's for me. If I'm donating to charity, that's going somewhere else. That's not maybe directly benefiting me whatsoever. So what we find is if we time people in their donations, they do tend to make more pro-social decisions when they have a very tight time frame. So we kind of expected to see maybe there's a more common, inkling to give because of that pressure. But at the same time, we found, we found different situations, different profiles of people who actually donate.
So when we're talking about impulse giving, impulse donations, there's a few different ways you can do it. What is like the most common way that people donate to these different organizations in store at checkout? Sure.
Definitely rounding up your cost of your purchase. So if I bought something that was $1.50, they ask if I want to round up. That additional 50 cents gets pulled into an account, and that 50 cents will go to the organization. So that's the most common ask, and that's the one that most people seem to prefer. So we're doing more research on this as we speak, and we're noticing a preference for that rounding up.
So throughout the course of your studies into impulse giving, impulse donations, what was that sort of like aha moment where you realized, oh, this is who is donating, who is most likely to be giving to these?
I was genuinely surprised. Most people who give in traditional ways, like sending in a check or going online and donating $10, we see a lot of older, wealthier, more educated, often white, donors. This is kind of the profile. Also, women tended to donate more. what we actually saw at the register was that people of really middle income and who were not really highly educated, they weren't graduate degrees, they were mostly people of color who were making these choices to impulsively give at the checkout.
Why do you think that is?
We're investigating that right now. So we are doing a second survey at the moment just to get more at the motivations of the people who are donating. So this initial run was done in 2021, and now we have data from 2025. And it's pretty interesting because we're already seeing patterns. It's still people of color and people who have this middle class, middle level of education profile. Some of the things we're looking into is just that there's a skepticism, like you pointed out right at the beginning of the show. Oh, I'm a smart person. I know better. These companies are just taking my money and they could do whatever they want with it. And there seems to be more of an inclination of, oh, I'm just giving to charity. With the groups that are actually enacting impulse giving, there's a lot less cynicism, it seems. So that general level of giving seems to just break down. If people who are, wealthier, more educated, they feel better going directly to the organization and they trust that more to go directly. The pass-through element, we believe, is something that certain donors are a little bit more skeptical of. With any donation that gets passed through, sometimes there's an administrative fee just for running the campaign. Anecdotally, I was just at the grocery store and they're doing a, campaign for a local food bank. And interestingly, they have the donations not going along with your cash total, but they have the donations being pulled into a separate account automatically. So that account will be, emptied and given to the charity. And there are all different ways that these companies are trying to help the community and are actually processing your donations. So looking at how people give, I think you expressed it really well. I think there's a little fatigue in terms of being asked all the time as well. So
I don't want to, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speculate, but just from my own personal experience, I feel a lot more comfortable if, and you alluded to it, I am intentionally saying, hey, this is something that I desire to do, rather someone coming to me and saying, hey, do you want to do this? Just in my own experience of how I would react in those two situations, my level of comfort would be in the first one rather than the latter. And do you feel like that's something that could possibly, you kind of alluded to it, but could be a motivation behind the skepticism that some people have? I
definitely do. I think there is a certain, that level of mistrust, right? That level of, if I really want to give, I'll go to that organization that I choose. I think there's a certain trend in giving with certain individuals where it's also just part of their community, how they were raised, their culture. And the differences of basically saying, a little bit goes a long way. We see that with certain groups more than we're seeing that with, especially older folks do not seem to trust these pin pads and they don't know where their money seems to be going. So there's definitely that element as well.
And to put a little bit of a bow on this conversation, with impulse giving looking ahead, how is it here to stay? Is it evolving? And what are some sort of the trends that you're sort of seeing in terms of how people are giving and how much they give?
So in our study, we are actually, kind of investigating how much people give, how they're asked to give, how they'd prefer to be asked to give. These things are different than what we see companies themselves saying they're doing. There's a great marketing report through Engage for Good that surveys the company side of things. And what we see is less and less people giving at the pin pad or at the checkout. From about 2021 to now, 2025, we've seen over a 60% drop in the size of the campaigns raised by the 99 top companies. So that's huge. That's a really big drop. And is it here to stay? I hope so. Again, that little bit does go a long way. You take 20 people and everyone gives $1, that's $20, and you've only given up one. That small amount could feed, 5 families. Just making that choice, though you may be fatigued by the ask, I would recommend just saying yes. It doesn't hurt you. And save your receipts. Take it off your income taxes if it really bothers you. But no matter what, I do hope people understand that, simple ways to give to charity, simple ways to give back to their community. This is about the easiest thing you could possibly do. It's just put out on a plate for you. So if it stays, I hope so. But there's definitely some questions about how much people are fatigued by it and how much people really trust those organizations. And like I said, they should have no fear.
So if there's one thing to take away from this research, it's that, for me at least, it's that these checkout donations are legitimate and they really are a pretty low effort way to contribute to something greater. Lauren, what do you want people to take away from this research? Do you have any parting thoughts?
I just think that no matter what, people should be donating to their local community, to organizations that they feel are doing something good. And if we can make it easy for people to do that over the course of a year, that really adds up. Don't be too skeptical, hit that yes button every so often.
Thank you, Lauren. That was Lauren Dula, Associate Professor at the Binghamton University College of Community and Public Affairs. I'm David Hermanovitch, and this has been the Aha Moment podcast presented by Binghamton University. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next month. The Aha Moment is a Binghamton University podcast. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen.